Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here, and it's time for another edition of the Orns Friday Focus on Aston Villa against Watford at Villa Park tomorrow at 3 p.m. UK time in the Premier League. A game, of course, that for Watford is everything if they are to get out of the bottom three. It starts tomorrow at Villa Park, a ground where they've had mixed fortunes in recent seasons, most recently a 2-1 defeat at Aston Villa after taking a 1-0 lead in 2020. That was the season, of course, that they ended up going down. Watford, though, look at this as a brand new ball game, and they must start winning, beginning with this game. There are 15 games for them to do very well in to stay in this league. It's essential that they get going, of course, tomorrow at Villa Park. Aston Villa come into this game having dropped points in their at least previous two games, if not longer. They do have some quality players on there, including the former Watford player, Ashley Young, who is a veteran at this point in his career, may even appear in this game at some point. And for Villa, they've got, of course, a lot of good players on their team. And they've got the head coach, Steven Gerrard, and we know all about him. For Watford, they will have Ismail Assar, no doubt, starting the game against the Villains tomorrow. And I really do hope, that Imran Louza starts this game in midfield. We need something more creative and more dynamic and fluid and more energetic in the midfield. I don't think the midfield has had the energy that it had at various points this season, but not consistently. And you're really beginning to see how the midfield has bogged down a bit. Even Sissoko isn't quite as sharp as he was for so many weeks now. And I don't know if it is about attrition, but I do think that things need freshening up in the midfield, and Imran Louza would be the perfect placement to start this game. I think he'd be placed perfectly as someone who can move the ball around and get people involved and get them involved quickly. For Watford to do well in this game, they're going to have to move the ball quickly, and they're going to have to be defensively sound. They generally have been under Roy Hodgson. This will be Roy's fourth game in charge of Watford as the manager. But of course, the mistakes were there in the game against Brighton last weekend. The third game in 8 days there. Could you say that that also was an issue of attrition? Well, there was definitely a defensive lapse or two, certainly for that first goal that Brighton scored. But now Brighton is back out of the way. Out of the way are those first 23 games. Now we concentrate on this particular game tomorrow. The defense will have to be disciplined as ever. That back line will have to be all hands on deck, no switching off at all in this league. You know that you cannot dwell on the ball for more than a second because it will be picked from you. And before you know it, it will be in the back of the net. So Watford must be careful on the road against a Villa side who are going to go forward, certainly will go forward a lot. They will bring in a lot of crosses, and they are going to bring a lot of crosses into the box. They've also got Ollie Watkins, who is someone who can drive. He runs off the shoulder of the defenders. So these defenders are going to have to be especially careful there. Cathcart and Samir. Samir has been outstanding generally since he's been part of Watford as part of the SKK group. And my question at this point is, where is Samuel Carlew? Is he injured? Is he training? Does Roy like him? Does Roy trust him? Does Roy like what he has seen from Samuel Carlew in training? What is going on, we ask, about Samuel Carlew? He came in a few weeks ago with great fanfare, and now we've not heard from him since. And I begin to wonder what the devil is going on. Now, I hope that Samuel Carlew makes an appearance. He's made one appearance on the bench, but has not played any minutes at all for Watford since coming over to Vicarage Road. And that has to change, surely, as we start these very important games coming up, beginning with the one, as I said, tomorrow at Villa Park. So I would like to see Samuel Carlew come in and show what he can do. I think that João Pedro has to start at the top of this lineup in the forward line. I also think that you should be putting Dennis in the forward line, and you should be putting Sarr in that forward line as well. Those should be your front three. I would recommend that Roy Hodgson play a 4-3-3. I don't know if he's going to do that. I think he's going to stick with the bread and butter that he has stuck with really throughout his career, which has been a 4-4-2. Now, he reverted to a 4-3-3 in the second half of the game against Brighton, to the best of my recollection. And I think the cat was already out the barn door, and the horse was rather already out the barn door at that point. But I do think that João Pedro has to start from the beginning. This team needs a spark immediately off the very start of the game. And let's not wait until the second half to start doing things, because then we become more desperate. We have more wayward shots, and we seem to be very unfocused at times. Yes, there are going to be spells in this game where Aston Villa are completely putting us under the cosh. There is no doubt about it that Villa will come out fired up. They are looking at us as we are presently in the bottom two, and they will think that they can have an easy time of it against us at Villa Park. And of course, that is what Villa fans will be expecting. They'll be expecting 3 points out of this game. And what Watford have to do is weather the early storm of pressure from the home side and then get them on the counter attack. What Watford must do is create more opportunities up front. That is what was missing against Brighton. And the finishing is also, again, a continuous problem for Watford in their forward line. I think Sarr coming back will be a big help, a big asset with that. He is someone who can finish. He's someone who is the most important, arguably the most important player on the pitch for Watford. We missed him for 4 months with that horrible knee injury, and he is back now, and I think he will be energized. So I expect that Roy Hodgson will start him from the very off in this game. He will come in and start. I expect that João Pedro, and I hope João Pedro starts in this game. And then I think that also you would have Emmanuel Dennis in that forward line. I would say that Josh King needs to sit down. I think Kuchka needs to sit down. I think those are players who need to sit down. I think Cleverly needs to sit down. And what you do, if you have to do it, now it all depends on how the game goes, is then you bring in someone like a Kayembe, someone, someone of that ilk, maybe Kayembe stays in to start, but you have to bring players in who can close the game down and game manage. And I think Tom Cleverley at this stage is more of a game management type of player than he is a starter. Although we saw at Burnley a couple of weeks ago how one of his stray passes almost cost Watford all 3 points. But I think that Cleverley is a good player still. I think he's reliable enough at least to come off the bench. He will give you some physicality, which I think Watford need at times, but he is not a starting lineup player for me as far as I'm concerned, as far as Watford go. And we'll see what Roy Hodgson does there. I don't think Kuchka should be starting. We don't need a stale midfield. We need width and dynamism, and we're not going to get that with Kuchka and Cleverley as the wideouts on the midfield end. We're not going to get that. We need to have dynamic players who are going to go forward, who are going to link up play a lot better, and we need finishers who are going to finish these chances. Watford will have to create more chances away from home, and of course, that does leave you open. It does leave you vulnerable. But again, you have to trust in your defense. The defense has done a reasonably good job here outside of those 2 moments against Brighton. They have done a very good job since Roy Hodgson has come here. And I do think that the finishing is going to be essential in this game. I think that if Watford start to finish these chances, and if Watford can get the first goal, they, I think, could go on and win the game against an Aston Villa side, as I said, who has been winless recently. This is it now for Watford. All hands on deck for this important game tomorrow at Villa Park between Aston Villa and Watford. This has been the Orns Friday Focus.